Hi there, on this screencast I'm going to show you how to set up your Greenfoot game with its player classes and the background image for the world class. So I already have my images downloaded into the images folder of my Greenfoot game. And now I'm going to open Greenfoot and I'm going to open that project now, or what Greenfoot calls a scenario. So now you can always launch Greenfoot and the project that you're working on by going into its folder and finding the file that's named project.greenfoot. If you double click on that, it will both open Greenfoot and um, it will launch your project. And if you ever get the message that this project was made with an earlier version of Greenfoot, do you want to update it, you should always say yes. Okay, so I have a blank world here and a blank game, and the first thing I'm going to do is set the background for my world. So I'm going to right click on my world, and if I have the image in the images folder, it should appear in the dialog box. Now when I look at it, I can tell that its sizing is not right. And Greenfoot, unless you add several lines of code, Greenfoot will just bring in images in the pixel dimensions that they appear outside of Greenfoot. So if your image is smaller than the screen, then Greenfoot will just tile it. Otherwise, if it's bigger, it's only going to show like the upper left-hand corner. So you want to be aware of how to resize an image. And I really recommend you do it in Paint.net rather than within Greenfoot itself. It's simpler at this point, and Paint.net is a useful tool in whatever you're working with, not just in programming, so it's good to be able to resize images in it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to background. Oops, that's right, I renamed the folder. So let's go screencast, button bashing game. Okay, so it's called background, so I'm going to open it, and if I go to view actual pixels, that's what I'm going to get. That's way too big. And really, I'm going to scale it down to the point that its height is 1024, because that's what most monitors these days, the height pixel dimension of the screen on most computers, except for ultra high-end computers, is. So I'm going to go to image and then resize, and under pixel size I'm going to put 1024 for height. All right. Okay, and now if I do actual size, let's see. Okay, it's going to be 1600 by 1024. So let's save that. Okay, and now I'm going to reopen Greenfoot and set the image for the world. So now, I may have to close Greenfoot first and make sure I actually saved the changes. Okay, so now let me open Greenfoot again, and I will open my project simultaneously with opening Greenfoot. So I'm going to go to button bashing game. And there it goes, and now I'm going to do set image for world, and there I have a nice image that is about the right dimensions for what I want. It overlaps just a hair, or it tiles just a hair on the end, but it's really not that bad. In fact, I can make my world a little smaller so I don't have that on this computer by going and opening the world class, and then under the statement on line 24, instead of get width minus 300, I can do get width minus, let's do 375 and see if that does it. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And you can experiment with it until you get a background that's going to look good on your 1280 by 1024 screen, which is what most of you are working with, unless you have the widescreen one monitors. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add the actor classes that I'm going to use in my game. So I'm going to right click over here on actor, and I'm going to do new subclass, and I'm going to call my caveman I'll call one yellow, and then I'm going to pick the appropriate image for him and do OK. And then I'm also going to do caveman blue, or caveman red, I guess. Now you should give class names. You should begin them with capital letters. That's the convention in Java and C#. Okay, so to see how my cavemen look on the screen, I'm going to right click on one and do new caveman red, new caveman yellow. Okay, so they look half decent, at least good enough for this exercise. Okay, so I don't really want you to add your sprites to the world by doing it in the design view. I want you to actually learn how to do it in code, and also give variable names for the sprites that you're going to add to the world. So by doing this, we'll be able to reference those individual actor objects from multiple methods, whereas if you add them in the design view and do the save the world option, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like here. If I do new caveman, I add him to the screen, and then I do controls, save the world. Well, Greenfoot will generate the code that will create the caveman or cavemen, and unfortunately it will add it in a place that I don't want you to have it, and it won't declare a variable for it underneath the class statement. It will make a local variable of the prepare method, meaning you will no longer be able to reference those variables in any other method since they're declared in the prepare method. In fact, I don't really want us to use a prepare method at all, so if you happen to do save the world and a prepare method is created for you, I want you to eliminate it and eliminate any reference to it. Then when you go back, you should go back to nothing. Okay, so I'm going to next create my caveman object in the code of MyWorld class. So I'm going to double click on MyWorld, and I'm going to go up to the top of the screen, and right under public class MyWorld, I'm going to say private caveman yellow, and that would be the name of the subclass that you chose for your actor when you're in the design view and creating the subclass. Caveman yellow, and I'll call him yellow guy. And then I'm going to declare a caveman red variable by calling, and I'm going to call him, his variable name is going to be caveman guy. Okay, so just because I've declared variables of that data type, I haven't actually made any objects or added them to the world. In fact, if I go back to the screen, I'm not going to see them at all, because really subclasses that you create are just designs that are used to make objects, and the objects are what are added to the screen, not the class itself. the object of the type of that class is added to the screen. So I go back to my world, I declared variables, and now I need to do what's called instantiating objects of the data type of the variable. So I'm going to do that in this method here that says public MyWorld. So this method right here is a special method in Java and C#, and it's called a constructor. And essentially in this method goes the code that executes when, in this case, when the game is launched. So in the case of our subclasses, it would be executed when an instance of that subclass is created somewhere in the game. But for the MyWorld class, it happens to get executed when the game is launched, and when the game is launched, the MyWorld and MyWorld object will be created. Okay, so I'm going to say yellow guy equals new caveman yellow. So this calls the caveman yellow constructor and makes a new caveman, assigns it to the variable yellow guy. And then I'm going to do the same thing for red guy, or no, what did I call him? Oh, let me go back and change this to red guy. So I'm going to say red guy equals new caveman red. Alright, and then the next thing I'm going to do is add those objects to the world, because until you add them to the world, even though you've declared them and created objects for them, you still won't see anything in the world. Okay, you actually have to add an object to the world before it's visible in Greenfoot. So I'm going to add them to their initial position that I want them in when the game starts. And since 0, 0 is the top left corner of the screen, and as you go across the screen, the X value gets bigger and bigger in a positive direction. And when you go from top to bottom, the Y value starts at 0 and gets bigger and bigger in a positive direction. I want to position my sprite somewhere on the left. Well, they're supposed to run across a landscape, so they would kind of be near the bottom of the screen and not near the sky, not in the sky. So I'm going to call this method of the world class. I'm going to say add object, and I'm going to give the name of the variable that whose object I'm adding, and I'm going to give pixel coordinates. So let me say 100 pixels from the left edge of the screen, and one of the guys I'll put at 700 pixels. Okay, and then the other one I will put at, we'll try 900 pixels. Okay, so let's go see if, alright, well, maybe 900 is a little bit too much. So let's dial him back to maybe 800. So I'm going to go and let's try 800 instead. Okay, so 800. Alright, so that's better. They kind of appear both together down at the bottom of the screen, and my game is all set up and ready to go.